Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to try to do our best to do this in 45 minutes. It's a 2-year program. First of all, my name is Moira Delgado. I work at Services for International Students and Scholars, and I'm going to be one of the co-presenters today, and I'm going to pass it off so the students can introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Linda Hong, and I'm a third year. I'm economics and statistics major with a Chinese minor.
Hi, my name is Amy Feng. I'm a 5th year East Asian Studies, Chinese, Japanese triple major.
Hi everybody, my name is Jeremy. I'm a 5th year studying international relations and Chinese with a minor in French.
I wanted to just give you a quick overview of how the program got started. I first came into this position 2 years ago, and one of my first mandates was to start a peer mentorship program, which I was really excited about because I really believe in the concept, and I absolutely love working with students because they give us a lot of knowledge about the populations we're serving and the needs of the peer mentors. So this was the first cohort in 2012. We had 25 students, and each additional year we had 25 students in each cohort. And I'm going to turn it off to them a little bit so they can tell you why they decided to join the program and what enticed them into participating in this type of a program.
So hi everybody, I'm Jeremy. I'm the guy up there in the right. And yeah, I'm part of the first cohort. So this will be we're beginning our 3rd year now with this program where I've decided to stay for 3 years now. I was really interested in this program because I studied abroad back in 2008 in Beijing, and I had a lot of trouble getting situated there. I was lost on campus, I was lost in translation, and nobody seemed like they could help me, even though the university I went to was specifically a language university. So I was really surprised. I mean, for traveling or not traveling so much, I was really surprised that nobody really knew how to speak English. So there was a lot of culture shock. So I wanted to make sure that if anybody from another country were to come here at UC Davis, they would have a better, with us, the global ambassadors, they would have a better transition into life at UC Davis. So that's why I decided to join the program.
And so, can we click to the next slide? So this is the first cohort. Second cohort, the 2013-2014 group, which Amy and Linda were part of, again, continued on with the spirit of the program. And we also had 5 ambassadors from the previous program that wanted to continue themselves. The first cohort did not have any stipend, no pay whatsoever. This cohort and continuing cohorts, they get $500 stipend, which still isn't very much considering, you'll see the length of the program, what they're required to do. It's a year-long commitment.
So I'll talk a little bit about why I joined this program. So I studied abroad also during 2012 during the summer, and during that time I was at South Korea. I don't know how to speak Korean, and I really wanted to meet some domestic students also and also learn more about the culture, but that did not happen because we did not get to interact with the domestic students. And so when I came back here, I found this program and I really wanted to join it because I wanted to make students that come here at UC Davis, they're stay enjoyable, and I want them to experience American culture and have someone to guide them too. So that's why I joined this program.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Amy, and I initially joined this program because I too studied abroad. In the fall of 2012, I studied abroad in Shanghai, China, and when I returned for winter quarter, I experienced reverse culture shock. And I don't know if any of you have ever experienced reverse culture shock, but it's a very emotional kind of reaction to having to readjust to life back at home. And you have feelings of missing your life abroad, your time abroad, and the friends and the lifestyle that you had abroad. And so when I came back to Davis, and very different from Shanghai, which is this giant metropolitan city. Hi. and I wanted to find a place where I could find that same international feel and meet people from other cultures and satisfy my quench for other cultures and people, and just to find a way to feel more right at home back at Davis and help readjust. And I also wanted to help international students here because I know what it feels like to be thrown in an environment where you are culturally just flustered, where you feel lost and homesick, and I wanted to help out the students here and make them feel more at home. Okay.
Next slide. This is the current cohort. None of them are here today. They're still on vacation or other parts of the world, but I just wanted to show you a picture. 25 students again this year. And next slide. So just to show you a few statistics. So the first year we started the program, we had 250 new first-year students in 2012. And actually the 2012 cohort actually worked with winter quarter students, which were exchange students. So they had 40 students to mentor the first quarter. 2013, you can see the new international student population has doubled to 484. And 2014, right now, we're expecting 645 as of maybe 2 weeks ago. There still might be a melt. We're not sure what the final figure out, but you can see how it's increasing dramatically. We made a decision early on to keep it to 25 mentors because they have to work as cohesively as a team. And for me to manage 25 students as well, it was a new experience for me, turning to like being a manager, supervisor of 25 students. And I want to be able to keep in close contact with them. And they're each paired with 5 up to 5 mentees. So about 125 mentees we're expecting so far this coming year. This one. So just how I started this program is I started picking the brains of our wonderful UC Davis colleagues. So just briefly, college education provided 2 units for the intercultural leadership class, which I taught for every single peer mentor group. That serves as their training and to give them a basis of skills of how they're going to deal with international students and among themselves. They're a diverse group among themselves. Internship and Career Center gave 2 units and a transcript notation for participating in the program. It's a year-long commitment. It's a big commitment. So they go through the class in the spring. They start communicating over the summer by email. Fall, they're mentoring individually these students. They're in charge of all the programs. And you'll see in a little bit, they'll describe how incredibly involved they are throughout the process. Winter quarter, they continue all the way through the end of winter quarter. So it's a year-long commitment. Center for Leadership Learning, Christy Navarro does a great presentation that's highly rated in all of the training on leadership. The Cross-Cultural Center, Kobe Rodriguez, does a section on social justice issues. And so he's involved in the program. And Office of Campus Community Relations, they've served as guest speakers as well in the program. So next slide. So the model we're using is to show you how they work up into this pyramid of cross-cultural competence comes from a woman. Her name is Darla Deerdorf. She's an interculturalist. She's been working in the field for 15 years. This model she's been working on since 2006. So it's based on first of all, and they'll explain it more clearly, the basic attitudes. And some of the basic attitudes that I set forth in the program is you have to be open to learning new things. You have to be genuinely curious. And you have to really want to help. And then it works up through knowledge and skills. You have to have some basic knowledge and skills in working with people from different cultural backgrounds, and also the self-awareness to understand yourself and all the cultural layers you bring into the context. And then you also start working, you have to understand all these internal things. I think Amy explained it really well. What's going on when I first encounter somebody from a different culture? What's that knot I get in the stomach if the person isn't behaving how I expect, if they're standing too close, or they're making what I perceive might be a compliment? Is it a compliment or is it a come on? What is it? So things like that, they have to be able to shift internally, and they do that through the class and through the interactions. And of course, the final stage is how does that actually break down? How do they actually show the actions? They go through this training. How do they translate those internal frames of references into being able to appropriately interact with students that they're organizing events for and among themselves as well? So that's just a basic overview of the model. We actually presented this together, a group of this just shows, I'm just completely always amazed by these students. I put a call, why don't we put together a proposal for a conference? It's a national conference, it's in San Diego. So we met all during fall quarter to put a proposal together. We all worked with 5 students and me. It was accepted. So we went to NAFSA National in San Diego. So next slide, please. And we actually got to meet Darla Deardoff, who was kind enough to take a picture with all the students. And they were so excited to be able, students themselves, to make the presentation and explain how they've moved along the model. I mean, I don't think any of us will ever become 100% culturally competent, but this is a good framework to work with. So now I'm going to pass it off a little bit to the students so we can talk about the first level on the model. So I'm going to pass it off to Amy. So there's things we set out in the very onset, how to frame the model.
Hi, everyone. So requisite attitudes. Many global ambassadors, as we've mentioned, a lot of us have studied abroad. A lot of us have traveled, but that is not a requirement to be a part of this program. And to be a part of this program, one major requirement is a genuine interest in helping other people, in being culturally aware, or in being interested in meeting people from other cultures. And most of us global ambassadors, one of the things that we look for when we interview other potential global ambassadors is that they have these requisite attitudes. In Darla Deardoff's intercultural competence model, they need to have a sense of openness to intercultural interactions and to meeting people from other cultures. They need to have a sense of respect, a sense of discovery and curiosity, because only with those types of requisite attitudes is one able to, or is one willing to step out of one's comfort zone. And that's something that's essential in joining this program.
Just looking back at all our fellow global ambassadors, all the mentors, everybody is from a really unique background. I'm Chinese American, or my parents are from Vietnam. My dad grew up in France, but I was raised here and born and raised here. So, well, I mean, yeah, everybody's from a different background, and everybody has that overall general requisite attitude. And you can really tell, like, although we're really diverse, we all can come together and work together despite our differences for like towards one goal.
And even during the application process, each one of them will have a core group of students that go through all the applications with me. They make the selection for the next cohort. They interview the students with me, and we make the final selection together. So they're involved. And all the questions, application questions, why do you want to be part of this program? So we look for things that say, I really want to help people. I was in like Amy and both Jeremy said, they had this experience living abroad, and it was incredibly difficult. I don't want somebody else to go through that same experience. I want to provide that social connection. So we look for answers like that. If we see answers where people just want to be there for the internship credit and they want to have something on their resume, that's good. It's a great resume builder. Of course it is, but we want people who are genuinely interested in the program. So we're constantly tweaking it. It's not always perfect. We had 2 or 3 ambassadors last year that I wasn't very pleased with. I mean, they did their work, but they didn't have that kind of, that spirit of welcoming and openness and curiosity about learning about other students. So an interview process, we look for the same thing. And one of the questions I think that really gets to that, one of the questions is, how would you handle somebody coming up to you and saying that international students are taking the place of California residents? And that gauges immediately where they kind of stand on that issue, and if we're also going to have somebody in the program that's going to be an advocate. So that's kind of another expectation of the program is you have to be willing to work with these students, but you also have to be advocates for them because they're going to encounter students in their classrooms sometimes that aren't going to be so friendly to them, and they might have some of this this backlash. So that's the requisite attitudes. And then it moves on to knowledge and skills. This is where the intercultural class that they go through, it's 3 hours a week, that deals with how do we get the knowledge around intercultural communication, and how do we start working on the skill set. So I'm going to pass it over to them again so they can share personally how the class impacted them and maybe some of the exercises, the experiential exercises we did throughout the class.
So one thing that really stood out to me was I personally enjoyed all of the activities that Moira assigned to us during the classes. They are very eye-opening. One particular activity, it's called the color card game activity. And what happens is you pair students up and each student is given a different colored card. There's a total of 4 colors and each color has a different set of instructions. And when I first received my card, I believe it was something like act super loud, or talk super loud, or and I'll get all up in his face, or and so my partner, his card was very he was supposed to act very kind of more conservative, quiet, shy, and these were just instructions, well, the instructions didn't say shy, but they said, to keep your tone of voice down, to, kind of don't be as open with body movements. And so this activity was very eye-opening to me because it showed how quick we are to judge people, especially after acting out what our card said to act out. It was just very eye-opening because afterwards we had a discussion talking about, so what did you think of the person, or what did you think of your partner? And a lot of the times, initially, a lot of us said a lot of kind of negative adjectives used to describe our partner, such as, unsociable, or rude, or, but what we need to do, the point of this game is to teach us and to show us that everyone is different, and that everyone, whether they are very loud and boisterous or very quiet, you should be considerate of how they are like, and we need to be mindful of how other people are like.
So one activity that really opened up my eyes was discovering speech patterns. So I grew up in a family where we tend to, grandma's in the background going, "Son, did you do the laundry? Yeah, I did the laundry. I want to go to the park. Okay, we always interrupt each other, and it was very casual for us. And I learned that that's a particular type of speech pattern, interrupting A and B conversations, and people would tend to just interrupt, and that's just normal. So, a typical American conversation would be immediately after person A speaks, then person B speaks right away. And the third concept would be when person A would speak and they would pause for a second, or there would be a long pause, and that's when person B would speak. So there's that sense of time. So when people are from different, or people grew up learning these different types of speech patterns, and they interact with other types of people, they might judge the other person, thinking they're really rude, or this person just doesn't really want to talk to me, but in general that's just how they speak. So I really I thought that was really interesting, because when I moved in with my roommates, I tended to be the louder person in the house, and they would express how uncomfortable it was that I would be loud, but I thought it was just really casual, and it was a sense of familiarity that I was close with them, so maybe I can talk to them like that. But I understood that now it's not the case. So you can't learning that, I know how to interpret the way people speak.
As you can imagine, I absolutely love teaching this class because I'm constantly learning about their frames of reference and their cultural stories about whether they lived abroad or their own family background. So for me, it fills my philosophy of teaching. As much as I teach, I'm learning. So it's just a wonderful circular pattern for me, learning from these students and having them give me feedback. What can make the class better? What can make the program better? And that's why a peer mentorship model I think is fantastic, is because since it's very student-centered, they're able to tell me what is working with them, with their mentees, and what about the program needs to be changing. And in fact, we changed something this year where instead of just having the students emailing them about like class schedules, make it more like a pen pal relationship. So you're already getting to know the students before they come here, just not answering questions about where to pay your tuition and your deadlines are these dates, but how to be involved with them already before they come. So next slide. So desired internal income, that's being able to, and you can see, is being able to have the flexibility in your mind to kind of change paradigms. Like as Jeremy said, being able to teach his roommates, and also when you're having these conflicts, to be able to at least take a pause and be able to look at it from a different frame of reference, or at least ask the question, well, maybe they aren't being rude, it's something that I'm not understanding or I'm not getting about the picture. So that's what we worked on during the class, and then it's also being able to, empathy is huge. A lot of literature focuses on knowing specific cultural details about a particular culture, which is good, but some of the latest literature shows that what's more important is being genuinely curious and having that empathy for people that are coming or that you're meeting. And some of the ways we did this, 2 activities we did in the class were just journals. They had to write a journal every week, and it didn't matter what topic, just something that struck you during class, something that you learned from either me or from your classmate or the exercise we did. And then there's this culture bump methodology. So a culture bump basically, really quickly, is any thing that's different from you culturally. It's a specific incident. Just, it could be a culture bump for me, like I went to France, was being kissed on both cheeks. I knew it was gonna happen, and just because I knew it was gonna happen, it still made it a culture bump for me because that's not how I grew up. And in the United States, you do see people doing that, but the most part, how I grew up in my community, people did not give a kiss, and especially somebody of the opposite sex. It kind of didn't freak me out, but I had to do a lot of self-talk, like this is okay, I'm gonna get through this, when it first happened to me. So I'm gonna pass it off to Jeremy, because he has some good stories to tell.
Culture bumps can get really complex depending on just the background of it, but I'll share a really simple one. During the first cohort, I had a partner. She's from China. Me being, born and raised in California, what's the first thing you do when you haven't seen a friend in a really long time? You go, "Hey, long time no see," right? That's I bumped into her on campus about 2 years after, or about a year after. I hadn't seen her for a year, and I saw her on campus, and my first reaction was I really wanted to hug you. Like, I haven't seen you in a while. How have you been? But I noticed she was just as excited bumping into me, but she had her arms crossed. And I realized, she was, she had a really nice expression on, but just because I noticed that her arms were crossed, I knew, she was not comfortable about hugging. So that was a culture bump. So I jumped in, but I also retreated, and went, "Hi, nice to see you." Yeah. So, yeah, that was a pretty fun one. Do you have a culture bump?
And even the culture bump, this is a theory. It's both a theory and an incident that was developed for about over 10 to 15 years she's a mentor of mine. Her name is Carol Archer from Texas. So it's something that I'm teaching them in class. It's highly experiential. I don't consider it an academic class, but all of it's based on theory and methodology that's used in academia. So it's a way of making it more alive and experiential. So when they know what actually happens. If I just tell them this is what's going to happen, this is the theory, you could stare at this model and just look at it like, what does that mean? So they're actually living the model through the class and through their experiences. And when I designed the class, I really wanted them not only to be able to use the material and experiences not only with the students they're working with and themselves, but to take it on into their world experience and their everyday lives. And I love it when I hear stories from Jeremy and Amy and other students say, this is really useful. This happened in my family, or this happened at work today. So the light bulbs are flashing. So this is, for me, I'm just so happy to see them taking it beyond the next level. And you'll see soon in the next slide. The very last part of this, and this is the harder step, is you take all this, and it's taking all these attitudes and putting them to action. So what does it really look like once the students are here? And you're designing all these different types of programs. You're taking them on field trips. You're meeting them at cafes. You might even have them over to your house to make pizza and teach them salsa. That actually happened. One of our students did that, and they loved it. I mean, just everybody has their unique culture, right? And so just sharing these kind of lived experiences just makes them feel more at home. So in the very beginning, we decided to have some events based around typical U.S. holidays. So we had Halloween event, we had a Valentine's event, which are still there and are still really useful, but then, the students themselves started coming up, why don't we do this? Again, the student-centeredness of the program is essential for it to keep on growing and having life to itself, and it constantly keeps me on my toes in terms of let's check in with the students, let's check in with the mentees, what do they want and what works and what fulfills the goals of the program. So it came the first cohort started winter quarter 2012 already? Oh my gosh, 2012. And Jeremy said, we have all these Asian students. We should do something around Asian New Year's. And I was just like, oh, I didn't think about it. It's not, it's a big American holiday in San Francisco and a lot of Chinese districts across the country. So I thought, it's a good idea. Let's try something. And I'm going to pass it on to him so he can explain a little bit more.
So what made me think of the idea was back in China, it was 4th of July, and I was just stuck in my dorm room celebrating on my laptop. So I thought, there's so many Chinese exchange students and South Korean exchange students, Vietnamese exchange students, or study abroad students. They all celebrate Lunar New Year's, and I know this is one of the biggest holidays. This is just as important, like it's synonymous to Christmas in Asia. So they must be really homesick. So I thought, let's try to do something where we can remind them, like they're, this is not completely foreign. We wanted to bridge the gap, or at least I wanted to. So I thought of doing a dumpling making event. So that's a traditional thing in northern China where the New Year's Eve, you have a big family reunion and you feast on a lot of food, and whatever is left over, you put it into dumpling fillings and you make dumplings out of them. So why not? Let's have a potluck and make dumplings. And it started from there, and we've been having it every year now, and it's the biggest event for our program. Yeah.
And what I found in the last one, so it's become a traditional event as part of the program. And this past year, we actually had students have just different slides. It's amazing to me the diversity even in China, how they might celebrate differently in northern China, eastern China, and southern China. And the students stood up and shared how the Lunar New Year is celebrated in their countries, and some of them were almost emotional about it. It was just like, I miss my family. Thank you so much for holding this event for us. So it was a way for them to convene. And so for me, it was really touching to hear. I learned something culturally specific, but we're also creating that kind of that sense of community and feeling welcome. And this year, we'd like to try to open up to the more domestic students to come so they can learn about the wealth of the international students are bringing to our community here, and they can learn from our students and make more of a connection that way. And another thing I'm going to add, every time I put out an email, I think of something, maybe some students will be interested in this. Last summer, Are you familiar with the presentations in the residence hall? What the Women's Center goes out, Peace Group goes out. And I thought, oh, maybe the Global Ambassadors might like to do something. But I always leave it up to them. It's student-centered, so I sent an email out and I said, would anybody be interested in doing something? This is a peak period in my office. I'm preparing for international orientations. We have up to 1,400 students coming in this year. Last year it was 1,200. And so I just thought, oh, hopefully somebody would be interested. Amy answered my email. She filled out the form and they said, yes, this would be awesome. So I'm going to pass it on to her. And I'm constantly amazed with their energy to continue on and kind of bring on the spirit of teaching what they've learned and passing it on to others. So I'm going to pass it on to her.
Yes, so I received a widespread email from Moira asking whether anyone would be interested in starting up this program in the residence halls. And I was like, yes, I want to do this. I was like, I personally, honestly, I wasn't very much of I wasn't very much of a leader, but I took this opportunity because I wanted to challenge myself, and I wanted to show myself and show others that yes, I can be a leader. I wanted to develop those skills because leadership skills are very essential. And so what I did was I took the information that Moira gave me and I developed the Building Cultural Bridges program, short for BCB, if that's an easier way to remember it. It's basically a transitional program in the residence halls, and it's supposed to help first-year students transition into college. And here at this giant public university, there are so many diverse cultures, people from different cultural backgrounds, and it's important to educate, especially first-year students, and help them adjust to life here in this very multicultural community. And so typically what we did was I, along with my team, a team of global ambassadors, we would create lesson plans for these residence hall presentations. And typically each presentation would be an hour and a half long. And I had never created a lesson plan before, so I was a little stressed, but with the guidance of Moira, eventually became something very natural. Eventually, we were able to draft out our very first lesson plan, and it was for the cultural bumps presentation. A lot of these presentations were based off of activities that we learned during our training as global ambassadors. And what we did was I wanted to bring what we learned through that class, and I wanted to share it with other students. And so our first presentation was the cultural bumps presentation, which we kind of went over. And for that presentation, the main activity was the skit. It was a lion and tiger skit. And one of the global ambassadors, she created these handheld masks. And so she painted it. It looked like a lion and a tiger, and you can see like the person's face through the hole. I don't know if you can picture it. We drafted a short script, and basically lion is from a culture where to greet others is to give someone else a handshake, whereas in tiger's culture, it is common to hug others as a form of greeting. And so what happens when lion and tiger meet is lion goes in for a handshake, but timidly, and then tiger steps forward and initially jumps for a hug. And lion just steps back and thinks that, wow, tigers are so rude. And this is the last line in the script. Tigers are so rude, no wonder they all have stripes. And we thought that was a perfect example of a cultural bump, and because what happens in a cultural bump, it may seem like a very awkward situation and a very negative situation because you're running because you're encountering someone who does something different from you and you're not comfortable with it. But what this scenario kind of teaches them is that you shouldn't look at it as a negative thing. A cultural bump shouldn't be looked at as something negative. It's actually something positive, and also it's something that you should just kind of consider the other person, and where the other person is coming from. If Lion knew where Tiger was coming from, Lion might not have made that judgment that all tigers are rude, and that's where a lot of these generalizations come from. A lot of these generalizations about people who are different come from, is by not understanding the other person and where they're coming from. And so that was one of the major activities of the cultural bump presentation, and it was a huge success. We had a lot of positive evaluations from that presentation. One of the evaluation responses was that they learned that cultural bumps are in everyday situations and that they are also within the same culture. And that's probably related to one of the ideas I brought up during the presentation, where cultural bumps not only exist between, people from other countries, but also exists between people even in the same state. California is divided between Southern California and Northern California, but the cultures between Northern and Southern California are very different. People are very different. And what you hear a lot of students say nowadays is that, you're from Southern California, and Northern California is the best, and, a lot of this, but instead of doing that, they should kind of just not say whether it's the best or the worst, but it's just that it's different. And then the second presentation that we worked on after that first big one was the nonverbal communications presentation, where what we learned in our training as global ambassadors was that there are a lot of these nonverbal cues that we should be mindful of. People from other cultures and the people who are different from you, they might communicate things in a nonverbal way, and it's important to notice these things. And so what we did was a global ambassador and we acted out these scenarios of different ways of greetings in different cultures. For example, in Japan, bowing is a very important way to greet somebody, and especially the angle of your bow. If you bow very low, it's to someone who is of higher, who's probably an elder or someone who's seniority. If you bow kind of, casually or less than, I think, a 45-degree angle, it's to a friend or to someone who you're very comfortable and casual with. And so that's just an example of one of the scenarios we did. And for that one, we got a majority positive responses, but we did get a couple negative, but there's only two or three out of negative responses. And the reason I could see for that was that there were a couple students who didn't participate in the activities. They weren't very enthusiastic about participating in them. They didn't have the requisite attitudes.
It's true. If you come into any type of a workshop and you're already I'm not going to learn, you've already set yourself up. So that's why I intentionally, when I'm speaking about the program, when I have the students, they do the recruitment too in the fall and the spring. They run their intro sessions. They talk about this is really important to have, because if you're not going to be open, you're not going to learn. You're not going to be looking for those different type of cues. And just as Amy explained, the culture bump is a beautiful tool for recognizing a cultural difference, and even just saying culture bump, it puts a negative level on it. You take ownership. It's different for me. Well, a lot of culture bumps usually will be different for the other person too, but not all the time. And it's a way just to stop and say, it's a cultural difference. And another step too is acknowledging your feelings. I felt angry, I felt sad, I felt frustrated. And that helps. You have to acknowledge the emotions that go along with this work. It's not always easy work. You have to acknowledge those deep emotions that go along with it. A lot of cultural competence models just deal with, you need to know this, and that. And if you know this, and that, you're pretty much done, or you're good. But if you don't know how to deal with those emotions, I think it's a for me, I'm still working at this model myself. That's how I learn. That's a learning moment for me. Like, I don't get it, but I'm getting angry, I'm getting frustrated, so let me find out. Maybe the person truly is rude. I'm not saying there are no people that are rude. There definitely are rude people, but until I can find out more information, why judge that person, right? It could be, I teach the students this, it could be they had a bad day. They'll have a bad day. Maybe it is cultural, I don't know. Maybe it's something with their own individual family. They have this funny hand signal among themselves. It's not cultural at all. But that's good to find that out, right? So I was just really proud of you because the evaluations were really, for a 45-minute presentation, hour presentation, they got some incredibly good feedback, and at least it made students start to think. Right? I mean, having that pause, I think, is incredibly useful when we're dealing with the role, or even when I do this with staff. It's just having that pause, like, okay. Every time I have that feeling of judgment or criticism, or I'm feeling less than, or I'm feeling frustrated, I just let me just kind of just stop a little bit and see what other information I can get.
And it just felt really great to get all these positive responses and evaluation responses, because it really showed that we were making a difference within the community. And a lot of people really appreciated the activities that we showed them, and just a lot of them were just, light bulbs in their heads, just, oh wow, I didn't even notice that, or I didn't realize I was doing that. And it was just, it was really great. And it was a very great success for the program. And yeah.
Going back to my mentees, in terms of what I've learned and applied from this program, I still keep in touch with my former mentees that I've had 2 years ago. Just last night, I have a mentee, or had a mentee who has a hearing impairment, and it was very interesting or hanging out with him, because it was very different for me. But yeah, till this day, we still keep in touch on a regular basis. He actually came to visit me, like, from Hong Kong, and we had lunch together one day just 2 months ago. And it's just, that's why I decided to stay so long, because of all the positive experiences I've had from this program. Yeah.
One thing, Jeremy, sometimes students, the mentees have to apply, but of course there's students that find out after the fact, or there was a referral from a staff member, hey, this student's having a hard time. And this particular student was having a hard time. They had a pretty significant hearing impairment, and I sent an email out to the Global Ambassador, hey, I have this particular student, would anybody like to mentor the student? Jeremy was the first one, and then there was some little spots along the way, because the students started getting dependent on Jeremy, and that's my role. Jeremy said, how do I handle this? So we kind of had some emails and some talks on how to handle it, but to show that this friendship has extended beyond, that's kind of what I hoped that would happen, is that people would form lifelong bonds. I know we're getting close to time, so one other thing I want to say about the aspect of the program. So this year's cohort, we have about 11 international students. My dream was to have 50% domestic, 50% international, even though I broadcasted it out to both populations. The first year we only had 3, and then we had about 5, and this year we have about 11 out of the 25. And I think 2 or 3 of them are former mentees, which is awesome, because they got so much out of it, they want to give back. So I think that also shows that in itself, that beyond an evaluation, which we do, that the program is working. So do you have any general questions for students or myself?
How do the students opt into, you said there's about 500 students incoming that won't have the opportunity to be mentees, so how?
We send an email to all incoming first year and also transfer students.
As an offer?
Yeah, here's the application. We send it out several times.
Oh, you
And
can be a mentee, there's an application.
yeah, if you have to be a mentee, there's an application, and we send it out to all incoming new international students, freshman transfer. And for mentors, we send it out to all of you. I know Ken Barnes does a terrific job in the Internship and Career Center, but we send it to all advisors, and they blast it out. And we had, this year was the biggest, we had 85 students apply. So it's becoming really popular, which is good. I mean, it makes it hard on our end, because I really hate turning people down. We have a wait list, and things work out for a reason, because there's students that were admitted off the wait list to become mentors, and they're amazing students. And they're so excited. I met somebody on the bus the day before this last cohort started, somebody dropped out, And I was sitting in with a new student off the waitlist list. She goes, I'm so excited you called. I was hoping this would happen. And I can tell she's going to be an amazing advocate for the program. She spent, I think, 4 weeks in Peru in an agricultural program. So.
Done this mentorship capacity, do you see yourself continuing on in such a way post-grad or continuing on even as undergrad?
Well, Jeremy, this is his 3rd year doing this. And he's become a lead. I forgot we added 3 lead positions because I got so busy, and this is offering opportunities. So again, they're going above me. I said, how about this lead position? And all the students got together and we decided as a group, leads would be good. So Jerry's a lead.
Well, that's definitely everything that I've learned. You can apply to any.
As for me, as a result of this program and of studying abroad, just like a culmination, I actually am interested in a career in international education, and I would like to help other students study abroad, or help bridge cultural bridges between the United States and other countries, and as a result of this program right here.
So you said that students come in through an application process. Does pretty much everybody that applies get something?
So far, does everybody get a mentor that applies?
Yeah.
So far, yes. We have a waiting list, but in our experience, there's some students that apply and maybe it's not for them, or they don't, they drop off. We want mentees that are highly involved, so we're trying to even tweak it this year. If they haven't responded, then we get mentees off the wait list. Yeah. So far, everybody that's wanted to have a mentor has had one. What I anticipate as the program gets more popular and people understand what a mentor is, and I think there's still a language, cultural gap of what a mentor is. And our program, there's a handout there, our program is really focused more on the social connection aspect more than the academic. We have academic advisors, we have peer advisors, so I wanted to fill kind of a different niche, and our office really isn't academic. And studies have shown that besides academics being a barrier, making true social connections and friendships is still a huge barrier and something that students feel like they've missed out on. And that's, even they've explained it to themselves. I wish when I had studied abroad, I'd had somebody to go to, I don't get this. This is driving me crazy about French culture. Is it me, them, or what's the disconnect? And just have somebody explain, no, this is how it works, and I wouldn't have taken it so personally at times. So, yes. I think it would be fine. Again, I always leave it up to the students because I've always emphasized on your first role on campus is to well academically and balance your lives. So that's why there's also the 5 mentees to the mentors. We're always kind of trying to figure out what's the right number. But yes, definitely we would, because that student came in mid-quarter last year, and usually like the new incoming fall quarter students, they've been paired up with their mentor by mid-July. But we're probably still going to accept people if there's room and the mentor's okay with it accepting a new mentee up to whatever point in a quarter, as long as it fits in with somebody's schedule. So hard. We've had this question, we've had this discussion with the mentors themselves, and right now the decision is if we increase the program, it would make it very, frankly, for me, I was just kind of dumbfounded at how much time it took behind the scenes to be a supervisor and kind of a mentor too. I was kind of sad, I want to be a mentor too, but I've become kind of a mentor to a lot of the mentors because they come to me with all kinds of stuff. So it would be really hard, and also among themselves, to have that kind of group, already 25 is already to have that team spirit and keep track and make sure that we have the level of professionalism in the program. I think it would, personally, I think it would be really, unless they hire another person, and that's another reason why we had decided to have the leads, because they saw, I don't have time to monitor the timesheets. I just trusted everybody. And I think if I had had somebody last year to monitor the timesheets, I could have nipped some things in the bud where a few of them weren't fulfilling their job requirements. So, yeah, so, does that make sense? You know, there are definitely challenges. I mean, in 2 years, I am so amazed about what this group has done. If you look in the back of one of the handouts, the programs they're involved with, they've come up with, there are 14 different programs these students have come up with. So they've done an amazing job. And they've gone, you know, the requirement for fall quarter is 40 hours. The first time I ran this program, her name, she's gone, Janice, she had 100 hours. I mean, students, you know, sometimes I have to tell them, like, slow down. You know, you've done more than enough, but they're just so enthusiastic about the program and they see the need. They want to jump in because I'm sure, I mean, Amy's still involved and she finished end of winter quarter. So, and even leads, they only get a $1,000 stipend for a whole year commitment. So it's an incredible commitment. And that's one thing I'd like to go back to campus and get a higher salary for because, yeah, that's kind of my concern too, is that students manage their time and get paid for the work that they're doing, because they're doing an incredible job. So we'll hang out if you have any questions. I know we're finished, but I gave you lots of handouts, so if you have any questions about demographics, let me know, and you can definitely, I have my card up here. I didn't put my email's on the bottom of the handouts, and the students too. Thank you.